This is The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TheTotalScreen.com. Episode 196, recorded March 2nd, 2019. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Weekly Set, the official podcast of The Total Screen. My name is Tyson. I'm your host, and joining me today, as always, is my PIC at The Total Screen, William Rohrig.
Hello.
So today, as usual, we are going to be talking about True Detective and the Magicians. But this is going to be the last time we're talking about True Detective, at least season 3, because it's the season 3 finale we're discussing. And then we're going to be discussing season 4, episode 6 of the Magicians after that. So let's kick things off with True Detective, the season finale.
What did you think?
Well, I don't know, I was feeling a little kind of dull on it when it first felt like it was coming to a close. When you got kind of the story about her dying of AIDS and stuff, that seemed kind of predictable, you know?
Yeah, it was interesting too because I knew that couldn't be it because I checked the time and there was still 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, if there's still 30 minutes, what the fuck are they gonna do for the next 30 minutes? What's gonna go on? At that point, if we were to leave it at that, all the plot threads had been, wrapped up.
Mm-hmm.
And that seemed to put a bow on the main mystery. So I was like,
which felt just too predictable. It felt like something we realized was coming 2 weeks ago or something.
So I was like, what's even, I was right about it not having anything to do with the pedophile ring. I mean, that was pretty obvious actually.
It felt like such an obvious red herring.
I think the documentarian's role in the show was to be that red herring and to just put that, that theory out there, you know?
Or just a reason to get, Wayne back into the case.
Also also a mechanism to get him back in the case.
I actually saw this one interview with, the creator of the show. I didn't read the whole thing, but somebody had made the argument, or a bunch of people have been making the argument that the documentarian is almost like a representation of Reddit and the idea of connecting dots that aren't really connected.
Right. She connects this to, the case Rustin Cole worked on in season 1, and it had literally nothing to do with that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that kind of conspiracy theory kind of minded, over connecting the dots that aren't actually connectable or something. So that, there's that, I think purpose-wise, her main purpose was, like I said, just to to give Wayne the kick in his pants to start looking again at the investigation. Because, why would he wait until he's all senile stuff? Well, because he gets contacted about this case thing, and it starts opening up all these old wounds. And because he has all these memory problems and he doesn't know what's really going on and stuff and doesn't remember certain details, why he left the case in the first place, it gets him wanting to get some closure on the case.
Yeah. He decides he wants to have some closure, so they start looking into it again.
And then they kept her around because it was a source of he would play dumb and get information from her.
Right, exactly. He would try and see what she knows based on her research.
Yeah, and he'd straight up lie to her because there was parts, I don't think it was in this episode, I think it was in the last episode.
No, she didn't appear at all in this episode.
Where she asked him a question did you ever think about this? And he's like, nope, it never crossed my mind. And then it cuts to 1990 and he's addressing that exact thing.
Yeah.
He's like, this can't be a coincidence that this other thing happened here, or something like that, and it's well, yeah, clearly he thought of it and he just wasn't, he's shining her on. He's not giving her any information while trying to mine as much from her as he can.
Right. Exactly.
But back to the endings. There's kind of 3, because it's almost like a Return of the King kind of thing where every time it feels like it's coming to an ending, there's another ending.
So the first ending is, since I don't think we elaborated on it well.
Yeah, we don't have to go through the events of the whole episode.
We don't have to go through the events. But the first ending was they find out where Julie ended up. because they confront the guy with the one eye who was the caretaker of the Hoyt's caretaker.
Junius Watts, who we know that's his name now.
Yeah, we know his full name now. Yeah. And basically he was taking care of the Hoyt's daughter,
Isabel,
who had lost her own daughter and her husband in a tragic accident, and that accident broke her. And he starts to explain to them the story of exactly what happened, which is, she sees Julie and she comes alive again.
Yes. And when this happens, the head of the Hoyt family, her father, Edward Hoyt, is away. He's not there to kind of monitor what's going on. So basically all the disaster here happens because Junius Watts kind of makes his own decisions in order to try to help Isabel. Right. He's like a good employee who cares about the family, and he's trying to help her out. And so he arranges this thing between Isabel and Lucy, where Lucy basically is like pimping her children to Isabel, not in a sexual way, but just to so Isabel can kind of treat them like her own children, play games with them, do stuff because it's good for her.
But of course, inevitably, the arrangement they made couldn't last, and Isabel oversteps and goes into full on kidnap mode.
Well, she had stopped taking her medication.
Yeah.
Which Junius Watts didn't know that she had done. Yeah, he didn't know at the time that she had stopped taking her medication. So she started becoming more and more deranged, and more and more possessive and chaotic. Yeah. And so she, decided to kind of try to take the kids. She got into it, and we found out that the reason why it was both Will and Julie that was with them, even though it was just a daughter, was because
Lucy insisted Will be with Julie when she was doing this.
Yes. And there was a moment when Isabel was starting to go a little crazy and was, they were kind of in a little bit of a tug of war between Will and Isabel over Julie.
We learned that Will's death was an accident.
Yes. Isabel kind of pushed him. He lost his hold on Julie and his head fell and he hit a rock. And then Julie being very young, they kind of just were like, oh, he's gonna be okay. He's just sleeping right now.
Yeah.
And so we can see kind of how they fed into her delusions and how she's so messed up as an adult.
That's why we find out, they find Will, where they find him because Watts put him there.
Yes. And he's posed like he is because Julie posed him that way.
Yes, because Julie posed him that way.
And so they go back, and then this gives him the reason, well, now they can't let her go because if they let her go, it's going to cause an issue. So they make the arrangement with Lucy. They take the kids and then make the arrangement afterwards with Lucy, who knows everything that's going on.
And then the cop that they killed last episode, Harris James. Harris James basically does all the cover up for Hoyt. He pins the death of Will and the disappearance of Julie on Woodard. He's the one who plants the evidence. He's the guy who kills Lucy, who kills Tom, it just
later on. That's after in the 90s.
But he's the one who did all that, basically the dirty work to keep this a secret.
Yeah. So, as we said, Julie ended up living with them in this pink room, and not in some sexual deviancy way,
in a very innocent, so it was supposed to be designed, for her ultimate comfort. They want her to be comfortable there.
But Julie never argued or wanted to go home or anything, so it never became an issue. And the reason for that is because Isabel had started feeding Julie her medication so that she had stopped taking herself.
She started giving Julie lithium every day.
Yeah, so Julie's just an addict at this point. She's just drugged out, doesn't know what's really going on, is being influenced by all the things that are kind of going on with her. We find out kind of as an adult, this is probably just pre-90s, basically.
Yeah, we find out that the reason Julie resurfaces in the 90s is because Watts basically lets her out. He helps her escape.
Yeah, he gives Julie a map, and he says, like, you know, escape, find me here, and then I'll help you get out from there. But Julie, being kind of all messed up, isn't really able to follow that and just kind of ends up on the streets.
Yeah, she never shows up at the meeting place that Watts is set.
And this is, to this point, this is what we know, or, you know, at least we have every reason to believe is 100% true, even at the end.
Yeah, even at the end. There's nothing to contradict Watts' story up to this point.
Yes.
And actually, Watts doesn't really lie. Watts isn't the one who lies to them.
No.
Watts tells them what he knows, and basically tells them Julie ended up at a convent, and they go to this convent and they talk to the nuns there, and the nuns confirm that she was there, but the nuns say that she contracted HIV and she died, and the nuns take them to Julie's grave.
Mm-hmm. Which is written like, was it, July Summer or something like that. Like, this name that she had been going by. And so, yeah, that's basically it. So she lived this hard life on the streets. She apparently contracted AIDS. Like, we know she lived a hard life on the streets. Like, that's known.
Yeah.
But the contracted AIDS part is called into question later. So she contracted in the story, contracted AIDS, and is back at the, ends up finding herself to this church, this monastery, and ends up like kind of finding new purpose and helping these kids out, and kind of comes into her own sensibilities again, where she's not like a lunatic. But then ends up dying there. That's kind of the story. So it's too late.
Your first hint at something different is when something interesting happens. Wayne bumps into a little girl that looks a lot like, or at least looks a lot like Julie when she was a little girl. And we see a man who's reminiscent of Tom, who seems to be this girl's father. And it's just an encounter, like nothing's made of it, but you can tell like Wayne is kind of thinking like there's something familiar here.
Well, initially when they do it, and the reason why they pick somebody who kind of looks like Tom isn't to reference anything having to do with Tom so much as to like play into the idea that like, oh, is Wayne having some kind of a weird memory?
Right. Is this Wayne's like memories like, messing with him?
Yeah. So, and that ends up not being the case, but it still has nothing to do with Tom, really. It's just, that was a red herring in a sense. Like the guy looking like Tom.
Yeah, that was a red herring in a sense, yeah. But the girl and it does turn out to be significant. Because it's triggered, because the appearance of this girl kind of triggers a scene for Wayne where, like, he's not sure where he is, He
starts to go into a delusion and kind of like, and it's like it would normally go into like a full-on delusion, except he's kind of like talking to himself and working an idea out.
Right.
And what he comes to is this idea that this guy who, they also showed he got into a truck that said like Arduino Plumbing.
Yes.
And we know that the little boy that was totally in love with Julie when they were like kids, that had said that he thought he would marry her when they grew up and stuff, was named Mike Arduino.
And we also get to see this episode. Wayne, what happened to Wayne in 1980 that led to him no longer being a detective. He didn't immediately like get fired, but he got demoted to desk duty.
Basically because we saw in the last episode, he had given his wife all this information. Yeah, it basically made the police station look bad because he was angry about the way they handled the case.
Yeah, because he was angry about the way they were handling the case, rightfully so. I mean, because like they were being dumbasses, and and so
they told him that he could deny it all or resign, or he could end up like working this desk job
because they were embarrassed for being called out for being dumbasses. Like, and it was obvious like that they knew it, but they were pissed off at Wayne because it was his girlfriend who published this, who got the information from him. And so they demanded he write an apology or he do desk duty. And
it's an apology and a recant. Like he was supposed to recant.
He's supposed to say, like all that shit is untrue, that he was supposed to basically gaslight her by saying, that she she wrote a false narrative based on her following me around for the case.
Yeah, and it kind of, he doesn't do that, despite Roland really wanting him to.
Yeah, Roland.
He doesn't do that for two main reasons. The one that's in the story, is obvious because he doesn't want to, gaslight his, girlfriend who ends up becoming his wife. But the other one that I think is also in effect that isn't, like, spelled out is I think it's also an issue of pride. Like, he's not gonna.
You're right, it's also.
He's glad he did what he did, and he's not gonna lie about it.
Yeah, because to him, he knows that he's not going to lie about it because he knows the official conclusion to the case is bullshit.
Yeah.
He knows instinctually that's bullshit.
So he doesn't want to gaslight his girlfriend. He also doesn't want to, like, give up on his pride in that situation. Like, he's not gonna, like, let them win out on that.
Yeah, he's not gonna let them, Roland's pissed because Roland just wants him to, do it so that they can continue being partners.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, nah, I'm just gonna do death duty. And this leads to a scene where he blows up on his girlfriend. Yeah, and it's funny because, Amelia, he blows up on Amelia. And it's funny because, like, one of the things he says, he calls her a pretty head-shitting bird. And he says, I don't need no head-shitting birds.
Yeah, this is all before they get married, by the way.
This was probably like their first big fight.
Yeah.
This is before they're married.
Anyways, back to the second ending. We'd kind of set up the events where Wayne kind of he's talking to himself about it. He works out that this Mike Arduin that was this little boy, his father, like, and he had a conversation with him actually that, must be true, and that he works at the monastery because his father had done some work for them, and so he just does it too.
Yeah. He has a breakthrough when he gets visited by the ghost of his wife, Amelia, where this is in his head. And then that's when she kind of points him in that direction.
Yeah, the idea that, like, okay, so she ends up at the monastery, everything that you've been told so far except the HIV thing, let's say that that's all true. And she's at this monastery, and now you have this kid that ends up in this same place, this kid that was utterly in love with her. And he's there because his father had always done business there, and now he's taken over his father's business, so he's doing it as an adult, and he encounters her as an adult. Yeah. And this is like where it starts the happy ending idea, which is...
Well, things diverged from there, and she went off and she married this guy. And what if the story of her death is just the nuns covering it up so that she can live in, anonymously in peace?
Yes. So that's the idea now, is that, okay, so this is the new theory he's got now. So they lived in peace, they had a daughter, and this is the daughter that looks just like Julie that he saw, that tripped him up and made him think maybe, that it was like a red herring for the audience, thinking that maybe he was seeing something, that they didn't, like, why is he suddenly seeing, Julie and Tom or something, this whole situation.
So he manages to get her address. And
yes.
He manages to find her, but when he gets there, he completely forgets why he's there or what he's doing.
Yes. This is where it started to kind of worry me, and I thought they were going to do a third twist, which was what I thought was going to happen, and it was based mostly, I'd say, on the music, because the music started getting kind of tense around it.
Kind of tense, yeah. Things started getting tense at that point.
I'm like, he's going to do something, like, and, like, she's going to end up dead somehow or something.
Right.
Because he's going to think that he's going to think that girl is Julie, and that this woman has abducted her or something, and that, and then in trying to, like, steal the daughter away from her is going to end up, like, he'll be the one to end up, like, killing Julie or something. I'm, like, working out this in my head, like, oh man, the music's getting intense. This is what everything in his head, all his memory problems is all going to lead up to, is him initiating this tragedy because he doesn't know what's going on.
As soon as he gets everything, I was like, oh shit, anything could happen now.
Yeah. And so like I started getting kind of nervous going like, oh wow, they're going to go for this kind of a twist on it now. That's a really, really dark twist. Like they reveal like this happier ending and now they're going to put a really dark spin on it, you know? at the end, I'm like, oh wow, that's kind of crazy. But they didn't.
But I'm good. Yeah. And I'm glad. And some people are upset that they didn't do any kind of crazy ending. I think, I find it, I think it fits. I'm pretty happy with the way this ended. I don't know. Like, I know some people are disappointed because they expected something grander, I guess.
Well, the idea is that if the second ending is true, and it seems to be, then he's completely lost track of it. Like when his memory failed on him, and now like that leads Lost forever. So they're forever away from that now. But that's also kind of hinted at as not necessarily being the case because after his son picks him up, he gets the address from his dad. His dad's all, I don't know why I have this address. And he's like, don't mind that. And he kind of takes away the paper like he's going to throw it out. And then it's like, oh wow, they're going to completely disacknowledge that. Like nothing's ever going to come from that. But then they have the scene later on where it shows his son looking at the piece of paper, like kind of gauging, is this something or is this not? Like he's going to, should I just throw this out? And instead he puts it in his pocket like it's something he's going to look into.
Yeah, like it's something he's going to look into. Like he's at least going to try and figure out why his dad had that address.
Yes. And so that's kind of like that's the point of like non-closure that we got.
Non-closure. And then it ends on this great shot of, I think it goes back to 1980. And it ends on this great shot of, Wayne is heading out the door and then it switches to him in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And then he goes off, like, and then there's a flash of light, and that's the ending.
Yeah. There's something else too, which is, I mean, that's the end of the show, but there's a few other kind of things I want to kind of bring up.
Okay.
From the episode. One is that they really kind of played into the kind of like memory transition stuff again.
Yeah.
Including there was like a amazing shot where it was Roland and Wayne when they were on their way to, Genius Watt's house.
Yes.
And they were driving over a bridge and it was like rotating around the car. And as like something obstructed the view of them, like the next time you'd see them, they'd be like in a different era.
They were, I think they were like the 1990s versions of them. And
yeah, like it started with them in like the 2015 like old guys driving, and then it moved around and then it was like the 1980s one, then it moved around again and it was like the 1990s one. Yeah. And then again, and then another time again back to 2015.
Yeah.
It was a really cool shot. Like I can't just say it's a single shot because obviously it's edited, you know, like because obviously they didn't have somebody jump in and do the makeup in the second that the camera was obstructed by the door frame. But yeah, you get to see these kind of like different eras of them as it goes around them, which I thought was really cool.
So I was pretty happy with the finale. I don't know about you.
I liked it. I think like as much as we like venerate season 1, I remember season 1 had a lot of closure issues that I didn't like about the way it ended.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I think this ended a lot better than season 1 did.
This had a lot more closure because we found out what happened like the main mystery that we have found is solved, and it's solved in a way that doesn't leave any lingering questions. We know exactly what happened to Julie and Will. We know where Julie is now. We know what's going on with her, you know.
Mm-hmm.
She's fine. She has a kid. You know, she married the boy who was in love with her in 1980. So yeah, so that's all set. I think, you know, we got closure on the character, you know, especially on Wayne, you know. I think if there's one thing, I think Wayne probably doesn't personally have any closure due to him, like, completely forgetting, you know, like, that encounter.
Mm-hmm. But we also have just the simple aspect that Wayne, not bogged down by the memories of the case, was kind of at his happiest, too.
Right.
As much as you think, like, oh, you know, like, he doesn't remember things, how horrible that is. Every time they go to him being as ignorant as possible about the case because his memory is failing him, all those moments were when he was at his happiest.
Right.
So, in a sense, the closure for Wayne is that he's happy in his ignorance and as he's old, you know, as we know he's got this horrible fate with this memory and stuff, but at the same time, the ignorance of all the horrors of that past are actually kind of a good thing for him in a way. And Roland, of course, we get a little closure on him. Now he's making contact with people again after being kind of out in the middle of nowhere for all this time. He's committed to visiting Wayne, you know, a few days a week, staying at his house a few days, you know, sleeping on his couch or something and spending some time with him and stuff. And that gets him away from his like kind of self-imposed isolation. Yeah. And we get that moment right at the end, before that final scene you had mentioned where we see kind of where it ends kind of on Wayne in Vietnam, where we see like, you know, Wayne with his whole family. And now it's like, it's almost like his relationship with his daughter starting off again on a fresh foot. So you have all these good aspects of that. And then Roland joins them as well, like as part of the family in a sense, you know?
Right, exactly.
So, I remember the other thing I wanted to bring up. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that we got a different time period in this episode. It's always been 1980, 1990, and 2015. But we got some time, I'd guess maybe 2000 or something, somewhere roughly around there.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, when
we got some scenes with Amelia and Wayne.
Yeah, when Wayne was working security at this college Amelia was teaching at, and his daughter was going to.
Yes. So we got to see some moments like before, like probably like relatively soon before Amelia died.
Yes, this was towards the end of Amelia's life, I would imagine.
Yeah, because Wayne was looking pretty old, but not as old as 2015 Wayne. So probably roughly around there. But yeah, so that was kind of another kind of little cool thing we got.
Right.
Plus, I guess we got another time period since we saw Vietnam Wayne. So it ends with 5 time periods instead of 4, I guess, or 3. So, but that's pretty much it. Anything else to bring up about True Detective before we move on?
No, that's all I got.
It's a great return to form after season 2.
It definitely is.
Yeah, this might be, I think as a whole, this might be a better season than season 1, but it doesn't rise to the heights that season 1 did at certain points. Like there were certain points in season 1 that were just phenomenal, you know? And I don't think anything in this season reaches those levels, but there are also some downers in season 1, some issues with like the closure at the ending, the season finale. There were some issues in season 1 and stuff that aren't a problem in season 3, you know? So, that's kind of where I'd rank it among the stuff. Like I'd say overall as a season, it's probably even better than season 1, but its best parts aren't as good as the best parts of season 1.
Right, that's fair.
Like, we don't have anything that's equivalent to, like, that long take scene where, like, Russ, like, broke into the house with the, the neo-Nazis or whatever, that, like, amazing single shot thing.
That was great. That was a single shot. That was amazing. Yeah, we didn't have any grand cinematography like that, but what they did with with Wayne's memory and the switching between timelines was interesting in itself.
We got some cool little dialogue moments from Wayne in this season, but none of them were necessarily as good as some of the stuff we got.
I'm like,
just the weird Russ Cole waxing philosophic stuff.
Well, I'm glad they didn't make Wayne like a carbon copy of Russ.
Yeah.
People were worried like at the beginning of the season that Wayne was just going to be like Russ Cole too, and you gotta realize that the thing that makes Russ Cole work was, somebody pointed this out, and somebody pointed out it's a big reason why season 2 doesn't work. It's because the reason Russ Cole works so well is because he was so weird and the people around him knew it. Like his partner knew he was weird. You know, yeah. His partner literally calls him out for, saying weird shit.
There's a great edit. I think it might have been made by HBO or it was made by maybe a fan or something, where I think, and they'd only done it when the show had only been on for like maybe 4 episodes or something. And they compiled all the kind of like weird, messed up, nihilistic comments of Russ Cole. And they put some like kind of happy music in the background, like as a joke. And it ends with him saying like, talking about like, you know, imagine the arrogance of, you know, of having a child, like plucking something from non-existence into being or something. And then it just like, the whole thing ends with, Woody Harrelson's character looking at him and just going like, what the fuck?
That was season, and then apparently season 2, everybody in the
everyone was Russ Cole.
Yeah, everybody starts talking like Russ Cole, like it's normal, and it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it was like Russ Cole's the coolest character in True Detective, so let's make everybody Russ Cole.
Yeah,
and that didn't work.
Yeah, that didn't work. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So like, you know, I agree that they didn't, you know, I'm glad they didn't turn Wayne into Russ Cole. They did kind of give Wayne some kind of cool little dialogue. Once you mentioned one where he said like, where he called her a head shitting bird, you know?
Shitting bird, yeah. They give Wayne some cool dialogue of his own.
But nothing's quite as cool as some of the stuff, and not just Russ Cole stuff, but some of the stuff from season 1. Like,
like some
time is a flat circle, and you know?
Time is a flat circle. Well, season 1 got really heavy also into like the philosophy, which I thought they were going to do that here. I thought like, I thought like the ghost visiting way, and they do that a little bit. Like the thing, you know, the stuff that Ghost Amelia says.
Yeah, she waxes philosophic a little.
Yeah, that's some of the philosophy, but they don't go as hard into it as this season as like season 1, probably because, you know, nobody in the season is as philosophic as Russ Cole was.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah,
exactly. There isn't a character of his ilk.
Right. Oh, so the closest we get to philosophy comes from a ghost in Wayne's head.
Yeah.
So, but it's a great freaking quote. It's great. What if there's another story? What if something went unbroken? All this life, all this loss. What if it was really one long story that just kept going and going until it healed itself?
Yeah, cool moment.
Yeah, a very cool moment.
But that's it for True Detective. So yeah, I mean, that's it for until and if it comes back for a season 4. We're probably not going to be talking about it. You know, maybe at the end of the year we'll be giving it an award for, you know, best drama or something. Who knows? Based on what ends up happening through the rest of the year. But that's it for our discussion on the podcast this week. So let's go into The Magicians, season 4, episode 6. This is a very like Penny-centric episode.
Yeah, this is a Penny episode. So
I should say Penny 23 because we get the other Penny in this episode too. For the first time this season.
Oh, well, we get the other Penny. So this is a Penny-centric episode because we get both pennies. You get 2 pennies for the price of 1.
two pennies for the price of 1.
By 2 cents.
Yeah.
Okay, with the jokes that way, so we got a Josh-centric episode, then we got an Elliot-centric episode, now's the Penny episode. and this explains the plot thread this explains and expands upon the plot thread from the last episode where we saw first, and I don't want to mispronounce it. I probably will anyway. Marina. See, I knew I was going to fudge that, but oh well. Had to go for it. Marina and Penny, both getting drugged. We saw Penny get drugged and kidnapped at the end of the last episode, or not at the end, towards somewhere in the middle, I think.
Towards the end, like in the last quarter or something.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we definitely saw that, but we didn't see what happened to him. And now we see what happened. And we also find out who and why, so we get all the answers.
Yes.
and it's not what you expect. Apparently, they're captured by a horomancer, and the reason
like a magician of time and
like time and space, like super powerful magic. You know, in fact, they're apparently very rare.
Mm-hmm. Basically we find out that the guy that abducted him, his mom is basically like the creator of that field of magic. Yeah,
his mom is, and basically what's going on is their existence in that timeline is fucking up his magic, is fucking up his spells, and we find out that because, like as you mentioned, his mom created that field, some of the stuff she had to use to create those spells, to create that magic, it was making her sick. And it basically displaces your mind in time.
Yeah. It's kind of like, it seems like a reference to like the discovery of uranium.
Yeah.
And how, the woman who discovered uranium, how the effect it had on her health.
But she's been using spells to keep herself, well,
Yeah, she's enchanted some items that kind of keep her.
So he explains though that their existence in that universe is fucking those spells up and making her sick.
Yeah. And so, you come to a fundamental conflict here, which is Penny's like, well, then we have to get out of here. We have to leave. We can't let this woman die.
Verna doesn't give a shit about anybody but herself.
She's like, but I found my girlfriend in this timeline.
Yeah, I found my girlfriend in this. This is the same woman who left her in like her own timeline. And then and Penny points out and she goes, yeah, but now I know the ways I fucked up, and so I don't do those things here, and things worked out so much better.
Yeah, so Penny's kind of like jumping around to different realities using this device that they got from the Horrormancer that we had mentioned, and they end up jumping, the first jump they make, the two of them together, before he decides that before they figure out what's going on with the guy's mom, is they end up in what she mistakenly says is like, oh, this is like a 1984, and he's like, worse, it's the Covenant.
Yeah.
This is magic being banned and like the enforcement of that,
Yeah, the full on government banning magic and like hunting down and imprisoning and killing magic users,
Yes. So, this is like magic's been exposed, it's feared, it's hated, so that's kind of the direction it's taken, with that.
Yes.
He ends up finding in that reality, they find the Horrormancer, they learn about his mom and everything like that. Penny makes a decision that he's going to get out of that reality to kind of save that kid. At first he leaves Marina behind because she's gonna like try to stay in the reality that they were in the main reality of the story. And so he kind of like leaves her behind. He ends up getting yanked from time and space by another Penny, by the Penny from our timeline who's dead, who's now working for the library.
Well, kind of, sort of dead in between. It's complicated.
Yeah. Well, he's dead. It's his soul is like owned by the library now.
Yeah, his soul is owned by the library. He tells the other Penny that Penny needs to take his place in timeline 23. That has to happen.
No, 23 is where he's from. He needs to take his place in the main story timeline. I can't remember what number it is.
Oh, I know. Okay.
It's confusing, all these numbers.
Well, yeah, it's hard to see. It's hard to say it when you don't know when one timeline has a number and then the main one we're talking about doesn't.
Yeah, they mentioned a number for it in this episode, but I don't remember it. Like, they don't usually refer to it.
Yeah.
It was like 50 something, like 52 or I don't know. But anyways, yeah, it's Penny from the main story timeline is trying to tell Penny 23 that he has to take
his place.
Yeah, he has to take his place in that time. He has to go back to where he was before he got kidnapped. And that, he tells him two things. One is that there's a bigger thing at play that he's needed for. And the other thing is that it doesn't matter if
this kid's mom dies.
Well, no, I mean, it doesn't matter if he stays out of the timeline. That kid's mom is still gonna die.
Yeah, he said she's doomed.
They've already broken the magic.
Yeah, she's doomed anyway.
Yeah, they already broke the magic. She's already gonna die. It's done. Like, it's set. Nothing's gonna stop that. But the rest of that timeline could also come to an end. So it's not even a matter of like, killing the one to save the whole, because that one is doomed. Period.
Yeah, period. But of course, things being vague, Penny won't tell Penny 23, what the big thing he's needed for is, or exactly why he's needed.
Mm-hmm.
He just says, he just basically basically says bad shit will happen Penny doesn't go back to the regular timeline and take his place.
Yeah. So that's, that's the main point of that storyline. Penny 23 goes, picks up Marina 23 and heads back into the main timeline. That's pretty much it. There's kind of two other or I guess three, but two main kind of other storylines going on in this episode. One has to do with Alice, who, in the last episode, she had promised Quentin that after she, saved him from his death that was recorded in the book, that she would go wherever the spell, on the book said that she was gonna end up. So like if it said, you're going to here, then you go there, whatever. She ends up getting taken to Modesto. I'm guessing that's Modesto, California, because that's an area in California.
That's what I recognized it for. I assume that's California. It looks like California.
And so she ends up in Modesto, in a very small town, a very boring small town. And she ends up finding out that her purpose there...
They have a water problem.
Yes.
They have a water problem.
They have toxic water, kind of like a Flint, Michigan-like situation, I guess. Where the water is toxic, and basically, she ends up noticing that this woman can use magic. She confronts the woman about it. The woman's like, what are you talking about? And then Alice realizes that this woman has come upon the use of certain magics, but doesn't know anything about it yet. Has no reason to understand it beyond that. So Alice starts to realize that, I guess the lesson for Alice in the storyline is that she's under the impression that magic makes everything worse. And magic just ruins everything. So when this woman's like, well, teach me magic, and Alice is like, no, magic is bad. It'll just make everything worse. And this woman's like, well, look at what's happening here. What's worse? The water's killing kids. What are you going to make worse? And, so through this storyline, we end up finding out that the magic that she used is being tracked. The librarians notice it and they want to get in contact with this woman about it. Alice runs into a hedge witch in a small store, notices the tattoos, and, is asking about, the magic, and they're talking about, the ambient magic and how little there is. This woman ends up, she's good at discovery magic, I guess. And so she notices that when Alice talked about the pipeline of magic, she notices one of the pipelines. She notices the magic coming off of it, and leads Alice to discover that one of the pipelines is there and it's leaking magic. There's more ambient magic.
Yes.
By that pipeline than there should be. And so by exposing that to Alice ends up opening up the pipeline more, and by doing so, she creates enough more ambient magic that she can actually do a spell that would take care of the water problem.
Yes.
But the one little twist we get on that is that when the hedge witch in that store that we had mentioned realizes that, he contacts another hedge witch, and they fucking blow up the library.
They blow up the library's base of operations in that town.
Yeah.
And then the members of the library confront Cameron Manheim and presumably take her away.
Yes. Who was the woman that Alice was spending time with in the episode.
Yeah. Who discovered she has magician powers.
Yes. Another big storyline we had in this episode, or relatively big, more than these other two we already talked about, is Margot. Which is, her storyline's kind of interesting because it was like a return to some of the quaint issues of maybe season 2 magicians. Fillery politics. How quaint.
Fillery politics, fillery stuff, right? Because we've been lacking fillery stuff this season.
Yes.
And so basically, Margot wants to know what was in that box, that contained, that box that was about her and her destiny, right?
Yeah, her birthright box.
Her birthright box. And we know what was in there was a talking animal who knows her birthright and could tell her, except it can't talk because all the talking animals have been stricken dumb.
Yeah.
And apparently she needs to get some beats that will help reverse the spell. But the beats are controlled by West Peloria, the leader of West Peloria. And she's like, West Peloria? And she's like, Yeah, because when Margot and Elliot left, Feloria went into civil war.
Yeah. So, and then there's an issue, and some other power ended up taking control in West Floria.
Yeah.
And they made a contract with this other place in Fillory that controls the beet supply, and ended up making an alliance to sell them all their beets.
And Margot's like, okay, well, we just go to the leader of West Floria, and we ask her to give us some beets, and he's like, yeah, there's just an weensy, tiny, insignificant, not barely relevant problem with that. And it's like the leader of West Floria, well, she's a bit difficult.
Not West Floria, but the country that has the beets.
Oh, the country that has the beets. Oh, that's right. I got it backwards. And she's like, she's a bit difficult. And Margot's like, so she's a bitch.
She's like, well, good thing I'm not.
I'm not.
So they end up, she wants to kind of like go by force and kind of be the dominating queen that she is. Josh kind of convinces her to
take the diplomatic route.
Yeah, to use diplomacy to try to get it. And so he's guiding her through it. It's really funny as he's kind of like steering her into the right direction of what to do to like get a diplomatic solution. And you can just see how painful it is for Margot to deal with it. Like she keeps doing things like, oh, here, have some of this milk that we got from an alpaca or something. And
alpaca milk. Oh god.
She's like disgusted, and then like
that was gross.
Yes. You can see how disgusted she is and just how much she's tolerating and just having trouble. And then that all comes to an end though when the woman says that, oh, I can't, do it because I already promised it and I'm not one to break my word.
Yeah.
And
when Josh says the wrong thing to her, because at that point she's kind of stressed, she goes back to Josh for advice, and Josh tells her that she's out Ellioting Elliot.
And that makes her angry.
That makes her angry, and so she throws diplomacy out the freaking window, and she goes in and she threatens this woman.
Yeah, she threatens to just destroy her talking alpaca, or not talking, destroy her alpaca population that she cares so much about.
Alpaca population, yeah.
She's all wipe them off the face of Hillary and stuff, and the woman's suddenly becomes very docile to Margot's demands. And so it ended up working, but then it ended up with a fight between Josh and Margot, with Josh kind of saying well, where did I go wrong? What's wrong? Margot explaining how she didn't want to replace Elliot and how Josh couldn't replace Elliot and how dare he try to replace Elliot for her. And then he kind of drops the bomb on her that he's just trying to be a friend and possibly a boyfriend to her.
Yeah, which ends up making Margot feel like shit.
Yeah. And that's pretty much Margot's storyline. And then there's another storyline, probably the smallest of the episode.
Oh, it's in Julia and the monster, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I don't even really remember what happened in that storyline.
So basically Quentin finds the monster, drinking and taking pills. He's basically gonna kill Elliot.
Yeah, he's killing Elliot's body. Yeah, I remember that.
And I don't know if he's doing it, if he's intentionally trying to kill Elliot's body, or who knows what his intention is.
I think he's just doing it because it's what, as he said at multiple points, this body craves meat now or something, so he goes off to get food.
Yeah, this body craves meat, so I think he's doing it because this body craves it, right?
Yeah.
So basically, this Quentin intervenes, and Quentin tells him to not hurt Elliot, and Quentin actually stands up to him. He grabs Quentin's head and he threatens to kill Quentin, and Quentin's just as long as you're gonna hurt Elliot, I don't care. I'm not gonna help you. I'm not gonna do anything for you.
Mm-hmm.
So you can just kill me, basically. And this causes him to back off and kind of be like, fine, I won't hurt the meat suit.
Yes. Oh yeah, the only other thing is that they end up figuring out where another one of the stones was.
Yeah, so
they find out the god who had it.
They find out the god who had it. So they're trying to go behind his back, and investigate, but he finds them, and they kind of make up some more bullshit again, and he resurrects this Egyptian priest.
Yeah, the mummy.
A literal mummy.
And then they're playing charades with the mummy.
And then they kind of just leave the mummy there.
Yeah, it's a resurrected mummy. Just leave him alive in this museum.
Yeah, Julia's just like, well, bye. And that was the end of that storyline for this episode.
Yeah, so that's the Magicians. It's still fun. It's still doing a lot with like character interactions that you wouldn't expect. Like what they're doing with Margot and Josh has been really interesting this season.
Yeah, that has been really interesting.
I always like storylines. I mean, it's not the first time we've seen something like it, but I like storylines like what they're doing with not Elliot, the monster. It kind of reminds me of like Angel, in its final season with Fred.
Yes, with Fred, when Fred got taken over by that, evil goddess or demoness.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's similar to that, like in this, it's not completely the same, but so it's not like new territory, but I like that kind of story. It gets existential.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to me. And, it's interesting to see a storyline that might be kind of undoing Alice's kind of biggest problem. Cause Alice is kind of an annoying character right now. And the thing that makes her annoying is that she's just like, oh, magic's bad. Everything's bad with magic. Magic's bad. We should just get rid of magic.
We see her doing this episode when she finds out Cameron Manheim has just discovered that she has magic powers. The first thing Alice tries to tell her is magic's bad. It's bad.
Yeah.
Like that's all she goes on about, and Cameron Manheim's just like, what the fuck are you talking about? Just, it has, and she kind of, and I guess in a way she kind of like makes Alice realize that it's not all bad all the time.
Yeah. So that's kind of the interesting thing they're doing with Alice in this season is that we've seen her go so far off the deep end, and now it's kind of like they're working towards bringing her back.
Yeah.
Kind of taking her back to the shallows,
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's kind of interesting to see that storyline play out, even though Alice is just really annoying right now. It's interesting to see that they're actually addressing the thing that's making her annoying, and they're not just like, oh yeah, we realize this is annoying, so we're just gonna, stop writing her that way, because that wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, that wouldn't make sense. If she just suddenly came to the conclusion that magic was cool and everything was alright, that would not make sense.
So instead they're trying to earn it, which is good.
Yeah, which is good. Yeah. And that's why that's why I enjoy Magicians, because it does have good writing behind it,
Yeah, they do big crazy things, but they earn it.
Yeah, they earn it. Exactly. Nothing in this show feels unearned. It doesn't feel like they just did stuff to write themselves out of corners.
So that's progressing well, and that's making it interesting. I can't wait to find out what Margot's birthright is. They've been teasing that out for so long now that's gotta be like a significant plot point.
I'll find that out soon. This was episode 6. How many episodes in a season? 13?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so we're about at the halfway mark of the season. So we're gonna start finding things out pretty soon, I think.
Alright, but that's the end of our Magicians discussion. What we got left now is what's coming up in the week ahead. So we're recording this on Saturday, March 2nd, but on Friday, March 1st, The Widow debuted on Amazon Prime. Then this Sunday, March 3rd, Good Girls returns to NBC. On Thursday, March 7th, AP Bio returns to NBC. I really like that show. That's really funny. For the People returns to ABC, and Station 19, which is, by the way, the spin-off series for Grey's Anatomy, returns on ABC. And yes, Grey's Anatomy is still somehow on the air. I just don't get it. Then on Friday, March 8th, 2019, Tin Star comes to Amazon Prime. That's it for the week ahead. Next week, we're going to continue our discussion of The Magicians. True Detective's over. This is the third season has come to a close.
Big continuing discussion on True Detective. But we will be talking about the next episode of The Magicians, so that's going to be fun.
And we're going to be talking about The Magicians right up into, and I think it's going to even share an episode with the first episode of Game of Thrones. I think the first episode of Game of Thrones and the last episode of this season, The Magicians, are like the same week. So, and that's going to be our next show. So our next big show we're going to be talking about, obviously, is going to be Game of Thrones. And we're going to be going over The Magicians and Game of Thrones as they kind of lead up into each other at that point.
Super exciting. Super exciting.
So that's what's coming up. Maybe our next couple weeks might be a little bit slower, or not slower, I mean shorter because of that. Instead of like an hour, it might be like half an hour because it's just going to be Magicians. Or we might find something else to talk about. Who knows? Whatever it ends up working out to be, that's what it'll be until Game of Thrones starts. But until then, you can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can reach Will. He is at Voxel Hero. You can check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, thetotalscreen.com. You can subscribe to this podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Casts. And the entire backlog of the podcast is available on our YouTube channel, as well as other content. So you can check that out. So thank you everybody for watching, or listening, I should say. I guess I could be watching it. It'll be on YouTube with just the podcast art and us talking, but
Yeah, I suppose that's...
I really hope you didn't just watch for an hour straight just staring at a piece of podcast art.
Yeah, please don't. It's not interesting. There are no plans to currently supplement this podcast with video either.
Yeah. Do what I do. Listen to the podcast while like playing a game or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Or when you're riding on a bus. Do something like that. But yeah.
I'm sure people already know to do that though. So
yeah. Just don't watch it on YouTube. Like play it on YouTube, but don't watch it.
Actually, yeah, play it on YouTube. Just go to our YouTube channel, click on the video and play it and subscribe, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon and do all the things.
All the things that all the other YouTubers tell you to do.
So that we can eventually end up making ad revenue.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be cool? Help us.
Of course, you can reach us for contacts. You can email us just at contact@thetotalscreen.com if you have anything you want to contact us about. But yeah, that's it. So thank you everybody for listening. Good night.
Good night.
If you would like to reach out to us and make a comment, send an email to contact@thetotalscreen.com. Stay tuned to The Total Screen for the very best in genre